with the First Lady, because these are the trusted adults that we surround our children with, school administrators, folks that work with them, teachers, social workers. And these are the people that our children should be around. Not masked agents carrying automatic weapons that are pulling them away from their families and putting them in, by all accounts at this point in time, inhumane living conditions where measles are spreading. So I just want to be clear, this is 9 weeks that Minnesota has been under siege by this federal force across all areas. We've seen the horrific results of that in the murders of 2 of our citizens, shootings of another, countless other acts. But amidst all of this week we got an opportunity to breathe a sigh of relief that Liam was brought home. I say that he should have never been gone. We should never have to be. I am not grateful to the federal government for bringing Liam back. I'm grateful for the people who surrounded him and brought him back, and that was not these people. But here's the thing. We don't know how many others are in the same situation that didn't get a photo that went viral. We don't have good confirmation of where they're at. Those are being Minnesotans. These are our children that were taken from us, sent to Texas in the middle of the night, put in inhumane conditions, and then forcing judges to tell them to bring back and bring them back home. We get each reports that get worse, and I just want to highlight something, just how far from normal we've been and how the federal government is talking. They call these detention centers tender age detention centers. That is just so wrong, and just such a strange usage of words of how they're trying to justify something that cannot be justified. It's been a week since I met with Tom Homan. Expectations have not changed. This force must leave Minnesota. The state of Minnesota and the professionals, nonpartisan judiciary, must do the investigations into the shootings and other abuses of Minnesota's human rights. And this all-out assault on Minnesota across all of state government and all across life must stop. I sent Kristi Noem a letter today demanding clear answers on how many children are currently being held in federal detention centers, where they're at, why they were taken, and what their due process rights are. And I'm going to let the folks here talk about this, that over the past several weeks, just very disturbing, and we visited many of them. You're going to hear from Superintendent Lewis and Fridley that they've shifted the harassment, the assaults towards our schools. And we were very clear about places that were always off limits in ICE operations, whether they were houses of worship, schools, bus stops, hospitals. But we know that's not been the case. They've been waiting at hospitals. They've been waiting because this is where they can get people. And when it comes to children, our schools, we've got video footage at night of ICE officers walking around schools in the middle of the night. We know that we had reports this morning several times, and our bus drivers, they're following the buses to the bus stops where they let kids off. Again, you're going to report on this, but I'm just trying to level set on this. None of this is normal. None of this is okay. None of this makes Minnesota any safer. None of this adheres to the values of this country. All it does is cause terror and trauma to the children who are there, but to the children in their classrooms today who are making little bunnies because their preschool classmate has been all over the news and was ripped away from his families. So we will just make it absolutely clear that we are trying to continue to work with the federal government to find a viable solution, but in all of these things, the onus lies on the federal government to follow the law, follow the court orders, follow human decency, and do the very simple thing of drawing this force back down, doing immigration reform within the rules of law, making sure that the crimes that were committed against the citizens of Minnesota are fully investigated and potentially prosecuted here in the state of Minnesota, and that the assault on Minnesota ends. And I think all of us over the last few days have become very clear that the letter I received last week around the voting rolls was the central theme of this entire situation that we're in. And that proved true down in Georgia. And it proved true by the president's own words yesterday as he said the Republicans need to federalize the elections, especially in the 15 states, which would include Minnesota. So we know what this is about, but the thing that we're about and the reason that we're here today is this is about protecting Minnesotans and most especially our children and our most vulnerable. So I'm grateful to have this team around me. I'm grateful for the work that's being done. There's an awful lot of that happening on the legal front. And with that, I'll turn to Attorney General Ellison.
Thank you, First Lady. Well, yeah, I want to say that we're very grateful for our governor who has been leading from the front in this very difficult time. As you know, we're so happy that Liam Conejo, which means rabbit, Ramos is just 5 years old. But I tell you this, he'll never forget what happened to him. And I remember when I was about 5 years old and living in Detroit, and I remember being on my tiptoes, looking through the window, seeing military vehicles go by. And that was when our city was having civil unrest, and I was about 5. And I'm 62, and I remember it. Anyway, I'm so glad that Liam and his father, Adrian, are home, happy for their family, and I'm grateful for Judge Berry for helping to bring Liam home. But it is a sign of how far we are from the normal rule of law that a judge even would have to make a decision like this one. But I think it's important for people to read the decision. This is an amazing decision for a court, for an American judge to have to write. And if you read the ruling, you'll see that Judge Berry felt the same way that Governor Walz feels and that I feel, and the First Lady feels, I think. And that is, he called the Operation Metro Surge ill-conceived and incompetently implemented. Let me tell you, that's about as powerful a language you're ever going to read in a judicial decision. Decrying the pursuit of daily deportation quotas, he said, quote, apparently require traumatizing children, unquote. Again, this is a judge who's prone to mild language, even in serious cases. He called out the government for its, quote, ignorance of an American historical document called the Declaration of Independence. Just to let all of us know how far afield we are from the moorings of our nation. The Trump administration clearly needs a remedial lesson in the founding documents and the values of our country. And I think that the educators standing behind me are the ones to do that. Over the last few weeks, I've had to remind the administration about the First Amendment, the freedom of the press, as we see that Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, although 2 courts found that there was no probable cause to arrest Don Lemon. The Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. All of a sudden, Trump and his allies have forgotten that they've been the one saying a lot of stuff about the Second Amendment. The second someone who doesn't agree with them exploits that right, now it's an issue. The Fourth Amendment that protects all of us from unlawful search and seizure. In his order releasing Liam and his father, Judge Bailey quoted the Fourth Amendment in its entirety, and he also wrote, quote, administrative warrants issued by the executive branch to itself do not pass probable cause muster, unquote, adding that this is called the fox guarding the henhouse. And, of course, the 10th Amendment, critically important, in fact, a founding, kind of the glue that holds federalism together, the power balance between the federal government and the states, attempts to commandeer Minnesota's resources and to bully us into compliance, which it cannot do. It's called commandeering, and we filed a lawsuit against it. Though we did not get the TRO that we felt we deserved, our case moves on, and we are very, very optimistic about the outcome. In his decision, Judge Bliley recalled how our nation in its infancy stood up to tyranny And he quoted Thomas Jefferson's writing about the would-be authoritarian king sending swarms of officers to harass our people. Does that sound familiar? The administration has forgotten that standing up to tyranny is our DNA as Americans. It is in the founding and original documents of our nation and the incidents that preceded the founding of the United States and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So I cannot believe that I have to offer reminders of this nature and on how the federal government should treat our children. Minnesotans have shown so much courage, but we shouldn't have to ask for that kind of courage of our children. But they have shown it. Kids should be thinking about homework or their favorite Pokemon. I mean, is that still a thing? I don't know, maybe I'm behind the times. Or getting a good night's sleep, or not worrying about if their father or mother will come home, or whether they'll be taken against their will to a faraway state or to a country that they've never known. But sadly, as Judge Barry also wrote, quote, observing human behavior confirms that for some of us, the perfidious lust for unbridled power and the imposition of cruelty in its quest know no bounds and are bereft of human decency. Amen. Unquote. Minnesotans know. Clearly the judge knows. Sadly, our kids know too. So we're going to take not just the letter, but the spirit of this great decision by a wonderful jurist and carry on in defense of the rights of all Minnesotans. Thank you, Governor.
Good afternoon. I don't have much to say today because for me, this is extremely simple. What is happening right now is harming children. Just the other day, I was on an airplane heading home, and in the seat next to me was a 5-year-old who wanted nothing more than to share his grapes with me, play little number games, and with pure delight, feel my bald head like it was the funniest thing he had ever seen. And to my new young friend, Wes, from central Minnesota, thank you for making that plane ride more fun than expected. You see, Wes doesn't care about headlines. He doesn't carry anger. And he certainly doesn't walk through any part of this world with fear in his heart. He just gets to be a kid. That sweetness, that innocence, that joy is something every child, every young person deserves to experience. So what is happening across our state, the great state of Minnesota, what is happening in schools and communities that should be safe havens for our students, is robbing children of the pieces of that innocence. It's eroding their sense of safety. It's interrupting the full academic experience that we work so hard to create in every classroom. So from me, from the Department of Education, from everybody here, the governor and the First Lady, to our educators across Minnesota, it's simple. Thank you. To the school support professionals, volunteers, coaches, bus drivers, paraprofessionals, and counselors, thank you. Every day you show up to keep kids learning and safe, and you are doing the best work in this state. So our ask is please let us commit, every one of us, to protect our children's joy, protect their right to safety and learning, and protect their right to be children and young adults in full. Like I said in the very beginning, what is happening right now, it's harming young people.
Thank you. Commissioner Cunningham.
Good afternoon. I'm Brooke Cunningham, Commissioner of Health. I want to make a few brief comments, many of which may be echoed by the concerns that others share here this afternoon. Public health officials, policymakers, academics, and others have long raised concerns about the conditions in detention facilities. While many facilities have screening and safety protocols, we do not know the rigor of those protocols or their compliance with them. It is not clear to us what kind of medical care or consideration is being provided to the people in detention, and we are learning about situations like the measles outbreak in that Texas facility through the media. Certain groups are at greater risk of poor outcomes, including young children, pregnant people, the elderly, and those who are immunocompromised. And I don't think we can overstate the psychological stress of detention itself. In addition to the concerns about the public health impacts of detention and the conditions in these facilities, we also know that federal actions have taken a toll on the mental and physical health of Minnesotans. People are afraid to leave their homes. Families are delaying care or not going in at all. Community clinics are reporting high no-show rates. And in public health, we talk about adverse childhood experiences and how the exposure to trauma, to stress, to parental separation and instability can affect a child's development and their health over a lifetime. A child's well-being flourishes in nurturing, stable environments, not in an environment of fear and uncertainty.
Thank you, Commissioner. Dr. Lewis?
Good afternoon. I am Brenda Lewis, the superintendent of Fridley Public Schools. And what I am sharing today is a tiny fraction of the clear and present reality in my district and many districts throughout the state. Let me be very clear about my role. I am not here to debate or shape immigration policy. That is not my lane. My responsibility, and frankly my obligation, is the safety of children, families, and staff, and the right of every single child to come to school to learn without fear. For weeks, I have been speaking out and publicly documenting the impact of ICE activity in and around our schools. I have done so transparently because our children, families, our staff, and the public deserves honesty. And they have the right to learning environments that are safe, stable, and academically focused, not terror-ridden zones defined by fear and intimidation. Since doing that, the retaliation has been real, and it has been escalating every single day. I have personally been followed twice by ICE agents. I am a U.S.-born citizen, born in Lake City, Minnesota. One of our school board members was followed for over an hour, U.S.-born citizen. Multiple board members have had ICE vehicles outside of their homes for many hours on end. This happened last week and again yesterday. 4 black SUVs outside of a board member's home multiple times yesterday. ICE staged at 2 of our school buildings on Saturday, moments after the New York Times article was released. They also staged again this morning. This is not incidental. This is not benign, and it is having a devastating impact on our school community and school communities throughout Minnesota. I think we can all agree that none of us want violent criminals who are not here legally in our neighborhoods, but I also ask, I believe we all agree that we do not want school children terrorized, families afraid, or our staff prevented from attending and working in our schools because of sheer and present terror. Right now, students are afraid to come to school. Parents are afraid to drop them off. Staff are coming to work wondering if today will be the day that something happens in one of our buildings. We are seeing attendance impacts. Families are choosing virtual learning not because it's best for their child, but because fear has taken over. And this fear is not perceived. This is justified fear. In response, we have stood up every support we can because that is what public schools do. We have added security. We have added trained observers at all of our buildings. We have adjusted transportation. We have adjusted arrival procedures. We have adjusted dismissal procedures. We have increased social work, counseling, and mental health supports. We have expanded virtual learning and meal access for families afraid to leave their homes. We have cabinet-level leaders physically present in every single one of our buildings. We are communicating constantly with transparency and care. I personally patrol around all of our schools every morning and every afternoon. And when I do this, I certainly lets me know through hand gestures that they know who I am. And still, our fear persists because no amount of school-based support can undo the trauma caused by federal agents posturing in, on, and near our school properties. Schools must be safe places. They must never become places of intimidation. ICE does not belong in and around our schools, in and around our bus stops. Their presence is harming children. It is disrupting learning, and it's eroding trust. I will continue to be transparent. I will continue to speak up. And I am asking urgently for action. Get ICE out of schools, out of parking lots, and out of our bus stops. Our children deserve to feel safe when they come to school. This is not political. This is all of our responsibility.
Hello, my name is Tracy Zhang, and I'm the school social worker at Highland Elementary in Columbia Heights. As many of you know, our communities and schools have been heavily targeted by ICE. You've heard from many representatives today about what's happening to our families, but I want to share what this looks like inside of the school from a staff member and what it looks like for children, educators, and the families that we serve. Over the past month, my role as a school social worker has changed drastically. I rarely meet with students anymore, and it's not because they don't need support, it's because we see fewer kids walking through the doors each day. Students used to be absent because they were sick, now they're absent because they feared deportation. Students used to ask me for help navigating friendships, now they ask me how to cope with ICE breaking apart their families and taking their friends. Much of my day is now spent coordinating food deliveries to homes, finding volunteers to transport students to school, and making sure basic needs are met for families who are too afraid to leave their homes. My job has always been to ensure students have food, clothing, and shelter, but I never imagined having to provide these services under such traumatic and distressing circumstances. Our teachers and staff are no longer just educators. They have become caregivers, advocates, and lifelines for our students and families. They deliver food, walk students to and from school, patrol school grounds to ensure safety, and do countless other things behind the scenes that most people never see. Our teachers are deeply committed. They really are. They're passionate, and they will always step up for their families and students, but they are exhausted. I am exhausted. Every day, I see the stress, tears, and fear as they face the uncertainty of each school day. How many kids will be in class that day, and how many will go home to find a parent missing? We're grateful that Liam and his father were able to return home safely, though we know this is just the beginning of the support that he'll need to process this experience that will likely have long-lasting traumatic effects. I also want to share the story of another Columbia Heights student, the first student in our district to be detained a month ago. That morning, I was asked to help locate a fourth grade student, Elizabeth Zuna. I met her father, Luis, in the hallway, and he told me that Elizabeth and her mother had been taken by ICE that morning on her way to school. Elizabeth was able to call her dad, and an ICE agent said they were going to bring her to school. Several staff members, including myself, waited outside the school building for a vehicle to approach and drop her off. No one ever came. That morning turned into hours of phone calls, desperately trying to locate a child. We did everything we could to keep Elizabeth's father calm and allowed him to remain at school as we searched for answers. By that afternoon, we had learned that Elizabeth and her mother were already taken to Texas. In my profession, I have seen many people break down in grief, but the image of Elizabeth's father will stay with me forever. I watched him sit in his car, bury his head in his hands, and cry uncontrollably. And those are images you do not forget. Today, Elizabeth and her mother are still being held in a detention center in Dilley, Texas. We urge our leaders to act with compassion, common sense, and urgency, because children belong in schools, not in detention. We're calling for Elizabeth to be allowed to wait out this legal process in a safe, humane, and loving environment, one that recognizes her dignity, humanity, and her right as a child. Children deserve safety, and schools should be places of learning, not fear. And no child should ever disappear on her way to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. And a thank you to the folks who spoke here. We're living at a time when school administrators fear for their own safety for speaking up about the most basic of things of protecting their children and asking them not to do this. I'm grateful to the tens of thousands of Minnesotans who've taken to the streets, the helpers who've helped us, kept this peaceful. I will say the anger and the moral outrage that I feel, I think is felt by many Minnesotans. We're trying to act like we're negotiating some type of budget deal or something. Nothing could be further from the truth. The extortion that the federal government's trying to put on Minnesota and the harm, this is on purpose. This is on purpose to hurt us and make us fear and capitulate. But I think it's been clear, and I hope folks are listening who can make a decision on this. This group's going nowhere. Our parents are going nowhere. We'll stand with our children as many weeks, months, years it takes to do this, to end this, as the judge said, ill-conceived, dangerous operation that has nothing to do with safety or sane immigration policy. So Minnesotans, stand that line, do so peacefully, know that every lever of power that we can possibly exert, from the Attorney General's office, from the Secretary of State's office, from the Governor's office, every elected official, and on the federal level, is being used. And I don't know, I don't think appealing to decency, appealing to human values matters. I think we just have to appeal that we're going nowhere, and this is still a democracy, and votes will be cast for decency over cruelty, for democracy over authoritarianism. But that can't be our only plan. Elizabeth needs to be home today. These children need to be accounted for today. We cannot wait for midterm elections, especially when it's very clear that there is no intention by this federal government to have fair elections. There's every intention to suppress those. So I'm grateful for this team. I'm grateful for the work. Know that the state of Minnesota, through the Department of Health, the Department of Education, and all of our tools, is working to make sure that we're addressing what are going to be long-term mental and physical issues that come out of this, but we will continue with it. With that, we'll take questions. Yes. Go. Good. I have not spoken directly to them yet.
What do you make of DHS Secretary announcing that federal agents will begin wearing body cameras?
Look, I'll just say this. Kristi Noem is the most ill-prepared and absolutely worst choice for any cabinet position we could. The idea of after three of our Minnesotans are shot, 2 murdered, all of that's happened. How about that body camera Alex footage? I've been asking for that. I asked him for the names of who did it. I'm asking for some response. This is called damage control. And the audacity, after they were given $70 billion and are the 5th largest army in the world, that they're asking for more taxpayer dollars from states like Minnesota, who are payer states. I put no stake in what she says at all. But here's the good thing is, every single Minnesotan has a camera. Keep filming. Keep keeping track of this. Keep accountability.
Governor, there seems to be a feeling among many in Minnesota that there's no path out of this, that there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Where did you leave things with Tom Homan? When's the last time you spoke to him? Is there a meeting?
This morning.
Come to the table with?
This morning. And I articulated again, we're not in a negotiation. We're not in a demand. We follow law. They know that. You've reported on that. And my expectation, not a demand. My expectation is draw down these forces, get them all out of here, give us the ability to investigate the murders of our neighbors and stop the assault on Minnesota. It would be my expectation, and it's there in their court, especially after everything that's happened here and with Liam and Elizabeth and countless faceless others who are our children, that they will address this. And it's my expectation and that we will see a dramatic shift in where this is at for the better for Minnesota starting this week. That would be my expectation. So yes, sir.
Yes, thank you, Governor Walz. There are 4 students in the Columbia Heights School District that are currently being detained in Dilley, Texas. Have you been able to talk to the families?
Yeah, this RT was anybody. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Zena Stenvik, Superintendent, Columbia Heights. Our staff members who are here with us today are in connection and contact with the legal counsel for the families. So we're working on it. We'd like them back.
Governor, I'm wondering if, session is somehow 2 weeks away. Are you thinking about any sort of relief or funding package for everything from food security for families who, can't go to school or work? Cities are saying their law enforcement offices are under strain. Anything along those lines that you're starting to think about?
Yeah, and our legislative team is here, and we're working with legislators who want to get this done. I mean, our dilemma will be in a session is that we have a split legislature, and the leadership in the House has not said a word about the children. They've not said a word condemning the killing of Alex. Won't even address it. Continue to dodge the question. So my concern is that in our agencies, we're trying to do what's allowed through the executive branch to be able to address some of those things. We do need, I think, some legislative fixes. I do think we need to, especially with our schools, understanding, and I don't think it's sinking in yet, the immense costs that are being put on these very tight budgets. Simultaneously, all of our federal funding is being, what's the term? Impounded illegally. So the assault you're seeing is one level. The assault that we're seeing in the agencies and the ability to do the things that the state will need to do in this crisis is also being undermined. They are doing everything they can to destroy the foundational pieces of what makes Minnesota great. And we are getting zero help from Republican legislators who are going to have to be a part of this. And look, I continue to say this. Not a single one of our leadership at the federal level have said a word about this. Being Tom Emmer, being the number 3 person in the House, has all of the capacity to do something about this. And all we hear is disdain. We hear cruelty towards the people who were victims of this. So I think we're going to have a tough legislative session. I will say that, because until you address the honesty, this is no political discussion, and I'm not in a debate with you on this. We need a full capitulation by the Republicans to talk about how horrific this was, ask them to get out of here, and then help us clean up the mess that they created. Yes.
What are your thoughts about the Pete Stauffer bill to withhold federal funding and turn over voter information?
Well, it's not going to happen, and that's the extent of Pete Stauber's intellect and legislative ability, so we'll move on.
Question for the AG, is there any legal recourse that will come of the targeting of children and their families on school grounds? Is there anything being considered in that realm?
Yeah, well, let me just say that our lawsuit against Operation Metro Surge covered all of these things. And I just want everybody to know there's a little bit misunderstanding about the posture of the case. The court did not give us the emergency temporary relief we were looking for, but the case moves on. And we are seeking expedited discovery and look forward to a decision as soon as possible. But the reason for the court's decision is because no president ever marshaled the forces of the ICE or anything else to attack one state this way. So there's really not much in the area of precedent. And so we believe there was enough for the court to make the decision that it did. It ended up ruling in the way it saw best, but this case marches on, and it does have everything to do with the relief that we're seeking to protect our children, our schools, and many other public institutions, and the rights of every Minnesotan. So,
Yes.
With NBC, sir.
Yes.
A follow-up on the body camera question. Body camera programs only work if the video's released.
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
you have any confidence that the administration will release video when tragedies happen, when controversies happen, when the public demands?
No. And you could have backed up that when you framed that question. You have any confidence in the administration? No, on everything. On every single thing that comes after that, because they've proven to be the case. I mean, this, and I don't even understand from the politics of this. This is just stupid politics on their part, because I would guess that 90% of Americans are like, we don't believe you're going to release the footage. And why did you bring this up after the fact when they should have already had, and it's state law in Minnesota that you have body cameras on and you turn over that footage? So no, there's absolutely no reason. I still have yet to have them confirm to me who killed Alex, what their names were. If I'm not mistaken, you can help me on this. Have they confirmed that those names that were released are theirs, or they did it? No, they have not, right? Governor of Minnesota had two of my citizens killed, and yet we don't get a confirmation on who did it, what's happening, and at this point in time still saying we have no say in any of the investigation into that, let alone potential prosecution. So I think we're the frogs in the boiling water, and man, it is bubbling now. This is foundational, as the Attorney General said, to everything this country is founded on. And this assault on Minnesota, for whatever false reason they want to give, and it continues to change, they don't care. And I would say what's most terrifying about this is if you ask the question, do you have any faith that this administration will honor court orders? No, I do not. I do not. Go ahead, Eric.
Governor, do you have concerns about the midterm elections? How will you run?
Not because of how Minnesota does it, because Steve Simon and the nonpartisan or Republican and Democrat who run these elections in our counties, in the states, as it is by the Constitution, as the 10th Amendment guarantees, and Minnesotans' elections are the fairest, the freest, the most secure, and the most well-attended. And that makes us a target. And that is exactly why the President of the United States said, not they, he said Republicans should federalize the election with at least 15 states. When is the President of the United States receive a nightly call from an FBI special agent raiding a voting section with the Director of National Intelligence? I don't know. I always used to talk to my students when I would teach them about history. I said the challenging thing about when an event happens is it's kind of like trying to read when it's up close, and you get a little space as time goes by and you're able to understand. The rest of the world is seeing this for what it is. All of us need to understand that too, and I will again make my appeal to the other 49 states and territories. We're just the test grounds for this. And what works here and what doesn't work here, and a softening or whatever, they're going to find out. As of today, I got to be honest with you, less smoke on the ground, but I think it's more chilling than it was last week because of the shift to the schools, the shift to the children, the shift to this type of stuff. So, yeah.
Walz, you talked, sort of kind of rephrase your own words back to you, but I'd like you to clarify. When you said about your phone call with Paul, and you ended that by saying it's your expectation you might start to see a shift kind of
Yeah.
within the week. What makes you confident to say that, and what shift do you expect to see?
The shift I expect to see is pretty simple. A clear reduction of these forces immediately back to pre-levels and 100, 150 that were here on a normal basis, working on the worst of the worst, working with the State Department of Corrections for decades, all of the normal processes on getting the worst of the worst out of here, letting us be part of these investigations, the BCA being part of the investigations, and then a reduction in this attack across us. I would hope that would be there. Look, we all know that the only reason Tom Homan's here and Bobino's here because Donald Trump was watching TV last Saturday, a week ago, saw the horrific aftermath of Alex's murder, and told them that this doesn't look good. He even used terms like, well, you know, that guy's stock's not as high as it is anymore. This is reality TV for him, and he was losing in the ratings. he's going to continue to lose in the ratings. So my expectations on this is not that they found any heart, not that Liam being down in a, a measles-infested facility with no safeguards, Minnesotans being terrorized. None of that's making a difference. What's making a difference is a district that they won by 17 points got flipped by 14 points the other way. And those are the things that happen. So that's our expectation. Yeah, we'll go.
That is, your impression is based on what Mr. Holman said to you, not your view of the state of play. What he said
Yeah,
to you.
it's my yes, a combination of both. That I don't see how they continue on with this in any way that makes any sense, both politically or operationally for them. And I also think that they brought someone in who may be able to gain some control over these rogue agents and bring this thing back in. So look, we'll see. That's my expectation. And what I would just say on this is none of this matters unless it's proof on the ground, unless there's changes. That's what we have to see. All right. Thank you all. Grateful. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, brother.
Fantastic.
Let's stop her. It's ridiculous. Sorry.
So I guess they're all on.